Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, from my understanding, is a pretty popular entry within the series, and after playing a bit for myself, I can see why. And for me, it was kind of odd why it never got a port outside the PS2 and a digital re-release on the PS3, and that was pretty much just like the PS2 version. And while it did get a re-release on the PS2 as like an updated version, kind of think of it as like Persona 3 and Persona 3 Fez. It's basically like that. That was only for Japan, and that was the version we ended up getting elsewhere, like in Europe and in North America and stuff. But regardless, there still is a few versions for this game, and of course I want to go over that. There are 4 different versions: the original release, the Mainax version, the Mainax Chronicle Edition, and the HD Remaster. The original was only released in Japan. Mainax was the re-release with Dante and a whole bunch of other differences. Then we have the Chronicle Edition, which was the re-release that came with Devil in Summer 2 if you pre-ordered it. I think it was like a limited version of it. And frankly, that was a pretty sick deal since you got Nocturne and that. But then we have the HD Remaster, which of course is for like modern platforms and stuff. Of course, I'll first compare the HD version to Mainax, then that version to the Chronicle version, and then that one to the HD Remaster. So with that, let's get right into the video. One of the first changes is actually with the name. When the game was released in PAL regions, it was actually called Shin Megami Tensei Lucifer's Call. I have no idea why they changed it, and if you ask me, I actually do like the original, but I guess this kind of fits the game, so it is what it is. And now with the game changes, there's actually a new opening with this one, and I'll show the original Japanese version and the Nocturne re-release, that being of course Mainax. We also have the Labyrinth of Amala in this version, which is just a dungeon with 5 different floors that you have to access through different points of the game. Then we also have the Fiends, which are just various bosses you fight throughout the game. Then we have the True Demon ending, which is considered the hardest ending to get, where you just have to beat the Labyrinth of Amala and then beat Metatron before you enter the Tower of Kajasuchi. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that wrong. I probably did, and half of you are probably going to punch me through the screen. But moving on from that, Dante is also in this version, as I mentioned before, and you can eventually get him in the party. Speaking of getting demons, you can also get a really powerful demon if you keep the pixie near the start of the game. It basically turns into like a level 80 super pixie, so that's pretty cool. There's also a new skill in this version, which is called Pierce. This one lets you bypass all resistance for physical attacks, except for repel. You can also fuse various bosses that you couldn't before, and I can't seem to find an exact list of this, so if anyone knows, comment it and I'll pin it. Another one that's new that I also couldn't find is you can fight all the bosses in this version. On that, you can also get Metatron and Beelzebub as party members. For the latter, you just fight him and then summon him after level 84, and for Metatron, you also beat it and just unlock the fusion for it. There also have been a few changes to the balance and difficulty related stuff here, like a hard mode being added. It also doesn't need to be accessed with New Game Plus, and the New Game Plus lets you pick what difficulty it is. There's also a few minor changes here and there, like lowered ambushes, instant death attacks being lowered, and the damage you take being lowered by 25%. Pretty sure these only really exist in normal mode, so keep that in mind. And the changes in hard mode is that you take full damage from demons, along with them targeting weaknesses a lot more. Also on damage, any taken from flow traps and poison are tripled, which sounds crazy to me. The prices from junk shops also have been tripled, which makes grinding for some of the Makatamas a lot more annoying. And the last thing, on hard mode, you can't run from battle unless all the enemy demons have some status that stops them from talking, which frankly sounds like a nightmare and can easily lead to even more unlucky deaths. You also don't get a debug mode in this version, which is a funny change since I don't know why they would leave that in the first place. And that's pretty much all the changes I can find for the Mainax version of the game. And again, this was the version that all the other regions got by default, which is still pretty good if you ask me, since it's basically everything the original had plus a bit more stuff here and there. Now moving on to the Mainax Chronicle edition, and this one is pretty short. The biggest change of course is adding Raido along with Goto Doji as an ally, and of course this does remove Dante. And yes, some of the scenes and events with him will change to put Raido in it. The opening to the game also is changed, but it's nothing new, it's just the original opening again. And the final change is where this version fixes a bug where if you open a chest in one place, it opens a chest in a different place with the same item. This is honestly a funny and odd glitch, but that was pretty much the last thing that was changed in this version. Now we move on to the last version, the modern HD re-release. This of course makes the game in HD and makes various elements look a lot better. You also have voice acting in this game, both in English and Japanese. I think it is pretty nice since every other PS2 SMT game had it, so Nocturne finally get it just makes me feel good. And from what I played in the English version, it's pretty good, but if you also want to, you can turn off the voice acting, which is nice as an option, even though I imagine a lot of people would just want to play it with voice acting. You also have a new difficulty mode, that being Merciful. It changes where you deal times 2 damage to everyone, enemies deal half damage to you, you gain times 3 experience, gain times 5 more marker, and your evasion and hit rate is increased and the encounter rate is also lowered. Another option you have here is the ability to pick what skills you want to fuse over. And frankly, I'm surprised this wasn't in the game originally, at least, for the Japanese version. The random skill transfer, I think, was tedious and annoying, and while that's still in the game, I'm glad you can just pick what you want now. There also is a quick resume option, where you can just quit the game and then come back right where you left off. This game also has DLC, that's only present in this version, of course, because, back then you couldn't really do DLC, but in this case, there's EXP Maka DLC. There's also music track DLC from, the other mainline SMT games and Apocalypse. You can also buy Dante here as well, which frankly kind of sucks, but I can kind of understand it because I imagine Atlus didn't have the rights to use him again, so they had to charge a fee for, you to get him again, which again sucks, but I understand. Also, Dante here finally gets Pierce, so now his moveset fully matches Raido in terms of what each move does. And there's also some name changes that were present here, and this is more in line with the Japanese version. There's quite a bit of them, so I'll just show them on screen for a bit, so if you want, pause the video now. And that's pretty much all the changes made to all the versions of Nocturne, and frankly, I think the HD Remaster is the best version to get right now. It adds a few things here and there that make the experience a little bit better, and while I understand the price tag can be a bit steep, especially with, all the DLC and at launch, getting it on sale might be a better idea. And it is kind of odd that I've experienced slowdown on the Switch because that's what I was playing on. It's a PS2 game on more recent hardware. And I still think the PS2 version is still fine, at least the one we got. So if you really want to, you can get that version. Just realize that it doesn't have skill selection and it doesn't have voice acting. But at least you don't have to pay for Dante in that version as well. I also got all my information from the Nocturne fan site. That one I'll link in the description, so if you want to check that, go down below. But I also want to thank you all for watching, so don't forget to like, comment, sub, and follow my Twitter, which is also down below. Again, thank you all, and see you guys later.